In 3, 2, 1, premiere, play.
Liking the music so far?
I see where this is going.
Ah.
Ugh.
I think most of us,
Oh,
at one
wow.
time or another, have thought about what a scenario would look like with live actors interacting with animated cartoon characters. It was the active imagination of our innocent childhood fantasies whereby we thought about going on adventures with Inspector Gadget, going treasure hunting with Scrooge McDuck, or just chilling out with Garfield and eating lasagna. In the case of those that grew up with the Looney Tunes and the Disney characters, they had wanted to see a meeting of the two worlds where you would have Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny in the same shot. It was just finding the right story. Enter Gary K. Wolfe. In 1981, he published the novel Who Censored Roger Rabbit. The story tells of a rabbit that is a doppelganger of the titular character that wants to help Private Detective Eddie Valiant solve the mystery of his murder, as his murder was a way of censoring him. To my understanding, the book had darker themes than the movie adaptation, which had a much lighter tone aimed at families and children, and was set in the late 1940s as opposed to the then modern time of 1981 when the book was originally published. Disney became very interested in the story and acquired the rights to turn it into a motion picture. It was just finding the right story and the director to answer the question of whether a hybrid live-action animated movie could work. And in 1988, Robert Zemeckis gave us that answer. He was fresh off the heels of 1985's mega hit Back to the Future, that he was so ideally placed to bring this fantastical vision to life of cartoons interacting with live actors. It was a lengthy process where the live-action footage would be filmed in 1986, which then took 2 years to then add in the cartoon characters. It was a risky gamble for
Get in the car!
Disney's Touchstone Pictures, but in the end, it was worth it, with the movie being successful both critically and financially. Does it still hold up, though? Well, only one way to find out as we head back to late 1940s Hollywood. The thing that really aids this movie is the pacing and the character arcs with their own quirks, and they all have their own specific purpose in aiding the story's progression. In Roger's case, it's simply to get his name cleared for a crime he didn't commit, and to actually aid Eddie Valiant in regaining his sense of humor after falling into alcoholism and cynicism after his brother had been murdered in Toontown. You might think that Eddie comes across as being somewhat of a jerk in the movie, and at first glance, you'd be right. He's resistant in wanting to take the job of taking pictures of Jessica Rabbit and her sugar daddy, Marvin Acme, for cartoon maker R.K. Maroon. Or just the way he speaks to others regarding his previous work with Toons, of which he loses his cool with Angelo in the bar, and he does this by knocking his stool out from beneath him and shoving an egg into his mouth. But like an onion, the layers of his character are peeled away as you learn more. Let's put this into perspective a minute, if we may. You're one half of a private detective agency with your sibling. You work side by side, you enjoy your work helping Toons with their problems, and things are going great. And then, you work one fateful case in Toontown where a literal screwball drops a piano on his head, killing him and injuring you in the process. Well, I guess you could say that was completely out of tune. Oh, please, like you wouldn't. And besides...
How dare you?
Damn it, MJ.
Fuck you.
It's time to
Yes!
Yes!
Oh my god.
Emotional story that Eddie has been through thus far, without uttering a single line of dialogue. With the entrance of Judge Doom, it did leave me wondering at the time if he had some kind of involvement in Acme's murder. On a side note, I thought it was a clever idea to put a face to the Acme Corporation that had been seen in so many of the Wile E. Coyote cartoons, as this corporation had various products that were intended to aid his capture of the Roadrunner, but really helped little to no end. The demise of the Shoe Tune is something I found disturbing as a child, and I still find it gruesome. But that's the point. It's to illustrate how cold and callous the judge is, and he doesn't care who the culprit is, whether it's the Tasmanian Devil, Bugs Bunny, or a Toon Shoe. If he thinks he's onto something with you, you will get dipped. It was clever to work in the real-life decline of the Pacific Electric Railway Company, otherwise affectionately known as the Red Car, as the Cloverleaf subplot was buying the Red Car so it could be dismantled, and the bigger part of the plan would have seen the demise of Toontown so that the freeway could be built. But this could only be done with Marvin Acme's will. This was another driving plot point of the movie, as the search for Acme's will was a fierce one, because without it, the Toons were homeless. And what I found was clever on the writer's behalf, because of Acme's disappearing, reappearing ink, it was hiding in plain sight the whole time, and nobody was the wiser, until Roger read out his love letter to his wife Jessica Rabbit, when the will rematerialized on the paper. The reveal of Teddy Valiant's killer did come as a surprise. Judge Doom just came across
good
as a
lord.
creepy character, but the revelation that he was revealed as the murderer was a clever move on the writer's behalf, as I don't think anyone saw that coming, which was just as much a shock to Eddie as it was for the audience.
What a
For a
twist!
mystery movie, the writing has enough suspenseful elements that keep the audience guessing, but still keeping the story at a level that's appropriate for everyone. From having the light moments with the Toons while having a few wink-wink moments for the adults, particularly when Jessica Rabbit's involved. 32 years later, the story's still solid. The late Bob Hoskins is the heart of this story, as this jaded private detective that's kind of lost his love on life with the death of his brother. The
He's almost got the look saying, "Can I have a cookie?"
Nothing is amazing because actors are trained to react to what's
No.
there.
Can I have a cookie?
And when you're
No!
acting to nothing, it's difficult to know what to work
Please!
with. When they gave him stuffed dolls to work with that allowed him to train his eye line to be level with what he was working with, then the finished article would show the fruits of the labor. Unbeknownst to him, this would be setting the precedent for future movies in which actors would need to use their imagination to characters and objects that wouldn't be seen until post-production. Especially with movies like Jurassic Park and Space Jam, which I suppose in a weird way could be seen as a spiritual sequel to this movie. Equally as impressive was Bob Hoskins putting on an authentic 1940s Hollywood accent, because for a British actor, if you didn't know any better, you'd swear he was American. When you get Christopher Lloyd to play a wacky and crazy character,
know, right?
you know exactly what
Oh,
you get
God,
to
no.
catch a movie's worth. Considering that this was the second movie working with Robert Zemeckis after playing Doc Brown in Back to the Future, then Zemeckis knew how to get the best performance from him. The lovable goof that is the comic to Eddie's straight man. Roger screws up at times in the movie, especially dancing in the bar when he's supposed to be in hiding. Charles makes Roger extremely likable and has good chemistry with Hoskins. He would have a cameo in Back to the Future Part 2, along with there being a collectible Roger Rabbit plushie in an antique store. Kay has limited screen time compared to the rest, but his character does have a huge impact on the direction of the movie, and he gives a nice performance as this likable guy that makes wacky toon gadgets. Cassidy has a small role as Eddie's love interest, but is the sober common sense to Eddie's cynical perspective. I thought her performance was great, plus I loved her 40s pin-up hairstyle look. Having Kathleen is just perfect as Jessica, with this very strong female voice and reflecting the type of accent that would be commonplace in late 1940s Hollywood, with this sassy yet classy delivery. If you weren't in awe of this performance as a child or as an adult, then there has to be something wrong in the world. Amy's singing voice for Jessica perfectly complements the movie genre and the era this is reflecting, with this slow and soulfully enchanting performance. Also, the way Bob Hoskins sells his reaction when Jessica pulls on his tie is priceless. This
What
movie
Eddie?
voice acting appearance from the likes
likes of Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, Sylvester, and Tweety Bird before his death.
Yeah. This was also Jim
Wow.
Cummings' third theatrical voice acting performance as Bullet Number 2 for Eddie's six-shooter. Considering this was before the era where visual effects were treated as an everyday occurrence, it was quite a novel and visual spectacle to see live actors interacting with cartoon characters in perfect harmony.
To get the special effects with the props, they would be floating across the screen with wires from above, which then have the tunes superimposed afterwards. This required precision from the crew, as one wrong item out of sequence and it would ruin the shot. The post-production would take 14 months to do, as the animation director, Richard Williams, would supervise the cartoon characters being overlaid onto the footage, and it meant taking every single frame and laying in 86,000 animation cells to the final cut. The movie would then be turned over to ILM for composite effects from lighting and shading, which is one of the things I was impressed with when you see Roger moping over Jessica's supposed infidelity, and the way the light shines off his ears does make it look like he is actually there in the alley with the light above his head. One of the more amazing animation edits was getting the shine for Jessica Rabbit's dress, and would you believe? This was achieved by shining a light through a plastic bag with steel wool, which is how she had flashing sequins.
Also, Charles Fleischer insisted on wearing a Roger Rabbit costume
Nice.
to stay in character. And 3 decades on, the effects and the visual edits still hold up amazingly well.
Zemeckis employed the services of Alan Silvestri once again, and like his work on Back to the Future, he really knew how to set the scene with his talent. The scenes where Eddie is riding behind the red car and the camera panning around his office really reflected the music of the time with this style of noir jazz. Silvestri was heavily influenced by composer Carl Stalling, who had worked on several animated shorts for Looney Tunes and Merry Medleys for Warner Brothers, where he averaged a complete score every week for 22 years. Now, when you look at that in retrospective, that's impressive, even by today's standards.
Yep.
Also, it would be wrong not to comment on Amy Irving's performance of Why Don't You Do Right, because this soulful bluesy jazz number left an impression on so many audience members with this enchanting delivery that complemented the character's sultry animation. Interesting thing to note that Jessica's themes by London Symphony Orchestra were entirely improvised. When you hear it, would you know that? I don't think so, because it sounds so flawless.
And like the movie, the music and its score is timeless.
The movie grossed a profit of $329.8 million against a budget of $50.6 million, which, adjusted for inflation, would be worth $734 million today.
Wow.
The movie won 3
good
Academy
lord.
Awards for Best Sound Editing, Best Visual Effects, and Best Film Editing, making it the first live-action animation hybrid to win multiple awards since 1964's Mary Poppins. It rekindled an interest in the golden age of animation, from the Looney Tunes to the classic Disney shorts, and also paving way for the modern animation scene with the likes of Disney putting out The Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and The Lion King.
A sequel has been talked about on and off for 30 years, to where even Zemeckis says that he has a fantastic script for the movie, but is not so sure that Disney will go for it, as they don't seem to have any interest in Roger Rabbit these days.
Considering that nostalgia is in, it would be a sure moneymaker for Disney, but if they don't want to do it, it's not happening.
The movie has been treasured for 32 years on VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, and for its 25th anniversary on Blu-ray, and people love coming back to relive the magic. I'm MJ Knight, and we went back to classic Hollywood for Roger Rabbit.
Excellent work, MJ.
Yeah.
I think most of us at one time or another have thought about what the scenario would look like with live actors interacting with cartoon characters. It was the active imagination of our innocent childhood fantasies whereby we pondered what it would look like if we went on adventures with Inspector Gadget, went treasure hunting with Scrooge McDuck, or just chilling out with lasagna eating Garfield. How would Garfield feel about that? I can imagine him be like, I hate Mondays and now I hate you. I mean, on the face of it, that just sounds so weird. Hanging out with lasagna and eat Garfield. I don't think Garfield would be happy with that. Just saying.
Oh God.
After Monday,
Sounds like
he
it's
hate you too.
sounds like it's feeding into the Eldritch
32.
horror vibes.
32 years on, the Steery. I've heard of, fairy tale stories, but fairy tale steeries. Anyone know about a bedtime story or
Steery stories to tell in dark?
No? Okay, me neither. Good. Equally as impressive was Bob Hoskins putting on an authentic 1940s Hollywood accent, because for a British actor, if you didn't know any better, you'd swear he was... That close. That close. That closer. I suffer for my art. There's Ray and Paul were going, I'm scared. This was also Jim Cummings' third theatrical. I've heard of theatrical, but I haven't heard of theatrical. It was a performance of theatrical stupendousness. Kaiju's like going,
what?
a sequel has been talked about for 3 decades. Where
It's time to stop.
Roger
No, it
Zemeckis
is
is like,
no.
Is there something I need to know about? Is Robert Zemeckis been doing secret rabbit human cloning? It's like, oh gosh, the nightmare fuel.
Oh, what?
Okay,
Oh
let's.
my.
Here's Robert. Here's Roger Zemeckis Rabbit, film director. Happy Halloween.
No! 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 None of that! Shame on you!
Blood.
Ah, nice.
That's right. That's right.
The gun!
Daisuke Jigen has nothing on me.
That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was good.
The nicknames actually came from the Mob Museum's nickname generator.
Ooh.
The one that they generated at random originally for Win was Sweetlit, but I thought that might get taken the wrong way, so I opted not for that one.
That's fair.
Yeah, the one I had for Kaiju originally would have been Kaiju Death Noir, and I'm like, no.
Another small contribution while we're talking about mystery. From the guy who brought you the Edgelord comes How to Run a Tabletop Mystery.
Ooh.
And it has the same skit of him playing the gang.
You gotta love
And
Blaze.
introduction to James the NPC.